Today I'm going to tell you the story of how I was kicked out of high school 10 days before graduation. And you have to forgive me a little bit because I've actually rehearsed the story a little bit. I tried to record this yesterday, but it was too jumbled, and there was just like so much that I was like, that's not really important now, or motivation I'm not sure mattered as much as some people might think. But I want this to be a message for the people I went to high school with, many of whom I still know today thanks to Friendster and Facebook and MySpace. But also for me, I need this to be a public confession, and also maybe a little bit of an explanation, because when I was kicked out of high school, I didn't really offer an explanation. And this is in 1998. Social media didn't exist, in any way like it does today. What I tried to do was hide from the situation and never really offered an explanation to some of the facts behind the case. And at the same time, what happens is people start to believe things that weren't so, that didn't actually happen. And I think another part of that is I may have taken some blame for some things that I didn't actually do. I think one of the things that has hurt me the most, here I am 34 years old, graduated when I was 18, or didn't graduate when I was 18. I never tell people I didn't graduate because, I had the diploma. Class was over. Seniors were already done. The expulsion was more of a lesson. It was an example made of, that nobody gets away with this kind of stuff. But I watched people, really get angry and upset with me over things that their best friends actually did. But I never wanted to rat anybody out, and I never wanted to throw anyone under the bus. I didn't want anyone to throw me under the bus either. And what I had found out is that's not what happened. In fact, just about, a lot of fingers pointed at me. And so I'm going to tell you that story. It's going to be a little bit of a longer blog today. But I hope to share my story, and I hope you find it somewhat exciting. It's kind of the story that formed me in my early 20s. So it starts back in junior year. I had moved to high school freshman year from Long Beach, so I didn't know anybody at school when I moved there. I moved from, 30 minutes away, so nobody knew me or cared about me at all. I had to make all new friends, and I made friends with this core group of guys who, to this day, I have just nothing but the fondest memories of. Junior year, I started making friends with some of the cooler kids, and those of you that knew me in high school kind of know who I'm talking about. One gentleman in particular took me kind of under his wing, and it would be a understatement to say he was my best friend. He was a mentor to me, and this gentleman was very angry. And this gentleman is no longer with us. We lost him very tragically a few years ago. But notwithstanding, he was an angry guy, and he taught me how to be angry, and he taught me a lot about what we're owed and how people hold things against us. And at the time, that spoke to my flesh. It really did. It was kind of like, yeah, like I deserve this and I deserve that, and I became very prideful and angry, and I felt like I was treated unfairly. There was one instance where was it junior year, I auditioned for a play. I was very active in musical theater, and just so you guys know, all of this kind of takes place in the context of musical theater and also student government, where I was in ASB. Well, what happened is I auditioned for a play, and I thought that it was very good. I thought that it was the best. As I told you, I was very prideful. And then my best friend actually got the role, a guy named Colin Rand, who is probably the only name I'm going to mention because, Colin, you are a brother. You have been with me through thick and thin times, and I just can't name too many people who have, been as there for me as you have. So, solidarity, brother. He got the part, and that made me angry. And I started to think about all these things that I had learned from my mentor at the time, and I started to lash out. And two major ways that I lashed out was, number one was alcohol abuse. Was I an alcoholic? No, I don't think you could get, at that age, it was so hard to get alcohol that I couldn't be an alcoholic. I definitely drank more in a session. I didn't know when to quit, so, I love to go to these small house parties and drink, and I always overdrank. I just kept drinking. And I dare say that this was a habit that followed me into many, many years into my life. Whereas to now, I rarely drink at all. Well, that was the first way I lashed out, was alcohol. I actually never did any drugs in high school. I didn't smoke weed at all until after high school. So I was drinking a lot. I had a great girlfriend. She was, really nice to me. It was a good relationship. But as I got more bitter and more angry, I also looked for new opportunities to get vengeance on what I thought belonged to me. And I was taught how to do certain things. I was taught how the fire escape system worked at the school, and how to get onto the building. So I was now able to kind of get onto the buildings, get in through the fire escape, and I could hang out, inside the school grounds. I could get into almost any building. And we tried to. I mean, I would even go there with this core group of guys. And we would stand on each other's backs. We did this one time, I remember, like where he stands here, and then I climb up him, and then the other guy climbs up both of us, and then we try to get on the roof that way. One guy lets everybody else in. My point is that I was taught how to do these things. I was not the only person doing these things. I was not the inventor of these things, nor was I the only follower. I certainly think I was in the upper echelon of leadership, and I think that my kind of ganas was like, let's go do that again. When I wanted to go do these things, like, for example, breaking and entering, yes, it is. It's trespassing. Harmless enough, though. I mean, like, for example, we would get into the school's theater system and turn on the TV and watch TV on Friday nights. I remember one time we were there with a small group of people, all from the theater program. People that if you know this story, and love, and you've probably never blamed once for these things that occurred. But they were just as much a part of it as I was. And somebody knocked on the door and bom, 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 it's the police. We're all freaking out. I ducked. I mean, I was like, the lead guy on Duck Dynasty. Whenever the cops show up, he just takes off, I ducked. I was hiding. I did not want to get in trouble. I had already been in trouble once for toilet papering a car, and the Irvine police, just really gave me a hard time about it. So, turns out to be friends of friends, and they were just goofing off with us. And so now they were inside, and we're all having this good time. We cleaned up our trash, and we would go. Well, that obviously, having that kind of access was the poison. That was the beginning of what, your eyes start to wonder and wander and think, oh, well, look at that keyboard in there, and look at that, that TV in there, and look at that guitar, and some of those things, and no one will ever miss it, right? Those don't have serial numbers attached to them that are counted in inventory and things like that. My point is that there was a small crew of us, everyone involved in drama and theater, and we were all doing a large number of these things. So here are the things that I did. Well, one day it all changed. When I don't really know who it was. I've heard that it was a substitute. I don't really know. What happened was he borrowed a key from one of the teachers, my drama teacher, and who I was very bitter and angry with for not casting me in that role. And then kind of the treatment I got later. I won't go into all that stuff, but I was angry at him, and I wanted to get back at him. And I saw this key was, said, hey, drama teacher, I left your key in your mailbox. Now, being an ASB, everyone in the office knew me. I had a ton of access, and I think most people liked me for the most part. I don't remember having a ton of enemies. There's some people that didn't care for me. I get it. I've got a very boisterous personality. For the most part, I think I was well liked. I go into the office, just very casually went into the mailbox and took the key, and that changed everything, because now I didn't have to climb over anything, and now getting in and getting out was much faster. We already knew where the cameras and motion detectors were. We knew how to get to a certain level in the theater without setting off any alarms. So I stole the key, and the key gave me access to rooms where cash boxes were. Now, I didn't know that. Somebody showed me that. I remember it very clearly. Another guy in ASB said, take a look at this. Showed me where the cash box was. He took a handful of 20s, and he was out, Well, that was just like, whoa, It took me a few days, I think, to really grasp the idea that we could do that. And I never wanted to get caught, so it was always just a little bit at a time. But I did steal money. I stole money from ASB, and I stole money from the theater department, ticket sales and things like that. I also would take, I would get people tickets to the shows, little money here, little money there. I bought that money. I used that money to buy some new clothes. We were not by any means a wealthy family in Irvine. I think most people in Irvine are wealthy, but we lived in the not so wealthy neighborhood. And I remember asking my mom, for clothes. I was wearing the same clothes I had worn in middle school. No, I won't go into the mom stories. Maybe that's another blog. But I use that money to buy nice clothes and to feel good about myself. And I continually broke into the school and took things and moved things around. I remember I took a band hat, and I had that band hat as a trophy for years. And really what it was a trophy of my own ignorance. And I remember the feeling I got when I finally threw that hat away. I had taken other small things, guitar from the music room, and had done some other things. There was an accusation about stealing music and things like that, where I was a part of that. That wasn't my activity, and stealing checks and some things. See, the problem, these are not things that I engaged in. The problem is that I had encouraged others, and I was part of a crew, and I think that I was upping the ante. And so I think other people were like trying to maybe show me how cool they were, just as I was trying to show my mentor how cool I was by taking it to the next level. And what happened was it got to this like ring where everybody was involved. I mean, everybody was involved. So it was really condemning for, I think, the whole crew. So it would be wrong of me to say that I didn't do these things. I did. I did them. And I was penalized, I think, for much more than the things that I did. And I took that as a pride element, because when I was asked to confess, I didn't confess anything. And finally, the school made a deal with me and said, I apologize for the shaking. The school made a deal with me and said, if you confess, you can finish school and walk, and you'll have consequences, but you won't be expelled. I think they were even like, we're going to ask you. It made sense to me at the time. We're going to ask you not to come back to school until graduation, and but you'll get to walk and your parents and all this kind of stuff. Well, the moment that I confessed, I was handcuffed and expelled and all that kind of stuff. So do I fault them? Yeah, it's coercion. It's totally illegal, and it's shameful, and the assistant principal should be ashamed of himself for not just saying, like, straight up, we have reports that you broke the law multiple times and you're going to get arrested. I mean, just be honest about it. But any day, let's get how that happened. All right, so you've got kind of this band of thieves kind of running around the school going crazy. I'm the master key holder. Did I lend that key out? Yeah. Hey, can I borrow the key tonight? Sure. I'm going to go make out with my girlfriend. Sure. You know what I mean? So things were happening that were outside of my control, and I thought we were never going to get caught. I figured I would give the key back when it was all said and done and wouldn't have to worry about it. Well, one day I got cell phones were pretty new. I can remember 3 or 4 people at our school that had cell phones. One guy in particular had a cell phone, and I would say that this kid was probably fairly bullied in his life, but a nice guy. Never personally offended me at all. Maybe a little more reserved in his life. And I think a lot of you guys know who I'm talking about. Well, somebody took his cell phone and then gave it to me. Said, hey, can you do something with this? Can you get some money with this? And I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with this cell phone, I barely even know what it is. But I went to lunch with the ASB kids. We all went to lunch, and we were on top of the world and kind of coming back into campus. And then the security guard, a guy named, the security guard at school, there was 2 of them, and they were my buddies. And I think they were my buddies because they probably knew that something was going on. They wanted to be closely attached. But they were always really nice to me and really respectful towards me. And they said, Owen, we need to talk to you about some reports that we've had about things that have been going on. And I was like, okay, great. Let's go talk about it. And they said, what's that in your hand? I said, that's a cell phone. Does that belong to you? No, it does not belong to me. They said, well, that's kind of what we want to talk to you about, is how much more stuff do you have that doesn't belong to you? They took the cell phone. Turns out the parents had reported it stolen. So now I was in holding stolen property. Did I steal the phone? No, I didn't steal the phone. It was given to me. But am I saying I don't deserve to be in trouble for it? No, I did. I did some horrible things. So that's when they pulled me into the vice principal's office, and I was very arrogant and very just like, you can't get me. Like I'm not going to say anything. The vice principal was kind of a smaller guy, but he was a tough guy, and he was trying to scare me, and I just wouldn't have it. He constantly was bringing up other people, and this is where I went wrong. I did not give up anyone's name, and I would not give up anyone's name. I thought it would be very noble of me to not rat anybody out. And I remember telling people, I'm not a rat, I'm not a rat. And it was just very newsies of me. It was very like childish, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, this noble thing. I should have done more of what they do on MasterChef, you know, and like saved myself. What I learned is that that's what everyone else did. And here I am being this guy that really didn't have any ties with anybody. Yeah, they knew me for 3 years. We didn't go to middle school together. Our parents didn't know anybody. I mean, I had some connections with my church friends at the time, but even then I was kind of like, you know, kind of like the, for those of you that know, I grew up Mormon and remained a Mormon until I was about 29. When I did leave the church for a lot of reasons unrelated to this situation. But, you know, I thought that it would be noble of me not to give up the ship. Well, as I sat there in my defiance, you know, and I had much cooler hair, no mustache, skin and bones, you know, I was a very small kid. He shows me a handful of confessions signed by the kids that were committing these crimes with me. From what I read and what I remember, all pointing their fingers at me, saying it wasn't me, it was Owen. And I remember my heart breaking, and I remember getting really scared. And I kind of said, you know, at that point, I said, well, if everyone else is saying it was all me, then I'm going to go ahead and say it was all me too. And what I thought would happen is I thought I would get like these, I was angry, sure, but I thought I would get these, you know, this like slow clap, like he didn't give anybody up. That's not what happened at all. To the opposite, these people that were involved immediately alienated themselves from me. Immediately. No contact, no thank you, nothing. It was all very much staying away, distant. So even those friends that I had, that core group that I was with, I was friends with them for years, I think even they kind of pulled back a little bit. I think they were maybe hurt by me spending less time with them and more time with, you know, ASB and kind of the cool kids and that sort of thing. And now I've got this record. I didn't talk to them for years. And we're on Facebook now. We're friendly, but there's no relationship there, except with Colin. And I mean, all these other kids in high school, I mean, nothing. There was nothing. I remember even I snuck into the graduation ceremonies. Because what happened was, after I wrote that confession saying it was all me, nobody else helped me, it was all me 100% of the time, I was kicked out of school. The officer, like the security, not the security guy, like the policeman that worked at the school, handcuffed me and took me outside. He says to me, hey, do you want to walk home and I'll meet you at home and you'll tell your parents, or do you want me to drive you home? And I was like, well, you might as well just drive me home. He said, well, let's leave now so that nobody sees you. I said, great. He walked me out down the middle of the school, handcuffed this popular kid. I'm not saying that everyone liked it. I'm saying people knew me. And put me in the car and let me sit there for a half an hour while all the kids came out of school, walked by. You know, I mean, not everybody saw me, but I was right there. I was on display. I was being made an example. Went home, told my parents. They immediately searched my room. My mom found booze under my bed. She actually found it like a day or two prior and had kind of like, you know, she was angry. So my parents kicked me out of school. And, I was kicked out of school. A few days later, my parents kicked me out of the house. And I didn't get along with my parents. I wanted to leave anyway. My girlfriend had broken up with me, and that destroyed me. And then I felt like all this big plot against me. I became very, very paranoid and very angry. And this part of my life began for me a real consistent struggle with drugs and alcohol. And I would also even say with women, you know, I felt a need to conquer women and to exact vengeance on this ex this girlfriend who was my first love, you know, and I wanted her to stand by me, and she didn't, and I don't blame her at all. I mean, looking back, and I did horrible things. I bashed her windshield in, her mom's windshield in, and if you're watching this right now, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. You know, I was in a dark place, and I knew what I was doing, and I did it. And they never came after me for that, and I appreciate them for that. It was very easy to find. They could have easily pressed charges. But I carried this weight with me for a long time. And right when school there were some kids that thought, man, that's so cool. That's so cool. And those were the kids that offered me weed for the first time. And I, of course, took it. I was already drinking pretty heavily. I ended up smoking weed pretty consistently for 10 years. And it wasn't until I got married that I kicked the habit, and I believe that God helped me through that. He literally one day took that urge away. But about a week after trying weed for the first time, I got into methamphetamine, and I did meth for 4 years. I wouldn't say heavily, but heavily enough to where I remember looking at myself one day and saying, I'm a speeder, I'm a meth head. And looking around me, I realized these people are not my friends. They're not going to stick up for me, and I packed up and I moved away. I moved away to Huntington Beach, and I immediately quit cold turkey. 22 years old. So kind of wrapping up here is I carried the weight of being ashamed of my life and where I had come from, and knowing even at 22, 23, 24 years old that the situation I was in today was because of what happened in high school, and I hated thinking that way. I hated thinking that I am the person I was in high school. And I was reminded of that right around 2006. This is right around Friendster, and kind of getting connected with high school people. Some people were very cool, like, oh my gosh, hey, what's up? They didn't even faze them, didn't even, remember. Other people were like, oh yeah, you were the kid that ... And then I remember even making friends on Friendster with some of the people that were involved. And I remember being so hurt that there wasn't even a thank you. Thank you for not turning me in. Thank you for not telling them that I did X, Y, and Z that you took the blame for. And then I even had their best friends. I'm speaking of one person in particular who played a major role and never got in a lick of trouble. And I'm not here to get them in trouble. That's past. But here's this person that did a ton of stuff. He had a best friend. And that best friend hated me. I mean, was angry at me, was like bitter towards me. I had snuck into graduation, and she ratted me out. I was like, get him out of here. He doesn't belong here. And I was so hurt because it was like, it was your best friend that did these things you're accusing me of. And that's why I think these people kept a distance from me, because they didn't want that truth coming out. And that's fine. I've had plenty of time to be bitter, and I think that's all gone now. Other people did not add me on Friendster, and did not add me on Facebook, and did not want to be my friend. And other people added me just fine, and even to this day continually poke it, why don't you steal it? Why don't you steal it? As if we are all the same person we were 13 to 14 years ago. And it's kind of like, I can't believe you're still bringing that up. It's like, why you got to bring up old stuff? You know what I mean? Other people even told me never to contact them again, and said that I don't want to hang out with thieves in my life. And sure, that could be a little unforgiving, but at the same time, like, as a mature person, I think that you have to accept that some of these things are part of the territory. I chose to make those decisions, and then they chose to not be a part of those decisions. I will say this: the person who I'm speaking of specifically, who said that to me, don't ever contact me again, did so in a very polite and mature way, and did not really partake in much of this. Maybe tagged along once or twice, but certainly didn't have the desire to do the things that we did. Anyway, so why am I talking about all this now? Well, I got an email from an old friend of mine who invited me to a get-together at her house this last weekend. And when I went, I came to see some of these people there that were there. And I feel like I was able to make a little bit of peace with the situation. I don't think I necessarily changed any hearts or any minds. But I got to hear another side of the story. I got to hear that hey, Owen, we liked you and we cared about you. And what you did actually hurt us as people. We were hurt as friends. We thought you were part of us. We thought you were part of the drama team and part of the Irvine Singers. And what you did was you exacted vengeance on us, and that hurt. And I admit I got a little emotional over hearing that. I was in a place in my life where I thought these people hated me. I thought they hated me then. I thought they hated me even now. And maybe they do a little bit. But to hear those things was very liberating. And I'm glad I went, because to be honest, I was a little nervous moving up to that event. I was a little nervous that I would get the, oh, we're leaving, if he's going to be here. And obviously that'd be very immature. That would be me doing the same thing that I accuse others of doing to me, is judging them now based on who they were then. But instead, I had a rather lovely time, and I felt that the people there were very warm and friendly. And so you specifically, who know, if you're watching this, I don't see why we're not connected on Facebook. If you're watching this, I want to thank you for spending the time to talk to me and tell me how you felt 12, 13 years ago. It meant a lot to me, and it has prompted me to write this video that is very cathartic for me, and being able to confess the things that I did and being able to apologize for those things. And I've made a lot of excuses in my life why I deserved to do those things. I didn't deserve my treatment. I lay that down. I made mistakes, and I paid for it. And I paid for it dearly. I lost 4 years of my life to methamphetamines. I got to participate in a really ugly part of Orange County. And I wish I could, go back to that and change it. And I get a chance to change it with my own kids, who I know are going to have those same paranoias and those same kind of fears, because my mom had it, and then I got it, and I know my kids are going to have it. And I'm committed to loving my children and to encouraging my children constantly and letting them know that they are, good enough to succeed, and that they do, belong. And that, they're going to face challenges in their life and things like that. These are things that I don't know that my parents ever shared with me. And I think that is a part of why I felt like I needed to lash out. So to my high school, to Irvine High School, to my professors, who I have called, and, I called them 5 years later and did confess and did apologize. But again, to you watching, to those of you I served with in Irvine Singers and the drama club, the drama team, my fellow actors that graduated ahead of me, to ASB, I apologize for what I did, and I hope that you will find it in your hearts, if you have not already, to forgive me. And I wish you nothing but the best, and hope that you will subscribe to me on my video blog and stay in touch with me on some of the other zany adventures I'm sure we're going to have together. Thank you for watching. Take care. Awkwardly presses the stop button.